Blog Talk Radio.
From Winston-Salem, it's Sunday Night Dead.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the early July 4th weekend edition of Sunday Night Dead. This is Matthew Slozer from Autumn Moon Paranormal in beautiful Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hope you all had a phenomenal holiday weekend. Getting ready to kind of go back to reality now and kind of a little bummed, but glad you're all able to join us at this early hour. Bumped it up an hour earlier because, to be honest, by the time the show wraps up and I get everything done and kind of unwind from this, it was way too late and I get up way too early and it was starting to just run me down. So we're going to try this for the summer at 8 o'clock. I think we're going to stick with it pretty much no matter what. I heard some feedback from my friends on the East Coast here that it was running them down as well. So hopefully this will be good. We have a very interesting show tonight. We have our one of our roundtables, but it's a little different tonight in that we have some guests that are going to just kind of non-paranormal associated guests that are going to ask some questions, and anyone else out there that wants to call in, the number is 646-929-2384. I'm going to have an open discussion tonight. They're always fun, always popular, and with me tonight, since Vincent, as you obviously heard, is a little disgruntled, he's away for the summer, and with me is my co-host, my daughter, Shaylin Slozer. How are you tonight?
Good.
You're a girl of very many words tonight, aren't you?
Yes.
All right. Well, also with us, we have our first guest of the evening, someone that I've known for quite a while and a great person, Miss Becky Phillips. Are you there, Becky?
Hi there. Yes, I am.
Hey. All right.
Hey.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's glad to have you on, and it should be very interesting. So, how are things in your part of North Carolina?
Rainy, wet, stormy, but awesome.
Yeah, the one thing I'm going to say is for those, I'm used to, ever since I moved down here, which was just 9 years ago, just back in May, it seems like we're always in a drought, and once you hit like late June, they turn off a switch and it doesn't rain again until September and everything dies. Well, we are on day, I think, 14 of rain. It's not constant rain, it's just thunderstorms, and I saw the outlook, and it's like the next 8 days are all thunderstorms straight. So I don't want to hear anyone complain about a drought, and I'm certainly losing my share of blood to mosquitoes this year. So should be interesting. I'm also going to check and see. Again, I don't have all the area codes memorized yet, so I apologize to my friends that call in a lot. Here we go, area code 850. Sunday Night Dead, who are we speaking with?
Hey, Matt, it's Tracy.
Hey, Tracy, I thought it was you. I just don't want to guess and guess wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, from Emerald Coast Paranormal Concepts in which town in Florida?
Panama City.
Panama City, Florida.
Yeah.
Mr. Tracy, and a great friend of the show and a good participant in the roundtables. I'm hearing Phase X2 in the chat is saying they didn't know there are that many people in North Carolina. Yeah, it's actually a pretty big, pretty populous state, so we have a lot of fun here. So how are things going in your part of the world, Tracy?
Very wet and soggy.
I understand. I think it's everywhere, at least on the East Coast, is just getting soaked right now. So, well, what we wanted to do is, and Becky was very kind, and I'd say a little, brave to volunteer to come on here, is I wanted to open up the roundtable and do something different this time, and that was open it up for people either listening in on the chat, to send their questions in on the chat, or to go ahead and call in 646-929-2384. And instead of us kind of discussing different paranormal concepts or questions, I wanted to give the opportunity for both Becky and my daughter, who, again, seems to be someone of very little words tonight, to ask any questions to people that actually have gone out to investigations and done some of these things, and maybe some questions as to what's really different between what we really do versus what you see on TV, where they're really taking a week's worth of work and condensing it down to make it look like it's an evening. So, Becky, I don't know if you have any questions right off the top, but...
Yeah, I have a major question, which is just the fear factor. I watch all these shows on TV, and I believe in most of the stuff that's going on. It's just that I have such a fear of something following you home, and I think I had questioned you that a long time ago, and I'd just like to hear if that's ever happened, and what do you do to keep from that happening?
All right, well, we will have, I'm going to bring on quick here, I believe this is the founder of Dead Air, Mr. George Lopez. Are you there, George?
Happy 4th of July.
Hey, happy 4th to you as well, sir. Kind of easing back into reality here. I really don't want to go back to work, but it's better than the alternative. So, so this is interesting, Becky, because this comes up a lot, and it's kind of interesting. Everyone always asks, are you afraid of something following you home? One of my jokes is it's bad press from the Haunted Mansion in Disney World, where you go to the Haunted Mansion and a ghost follows you home, but it definitely is a risk. There's definitely stories here. I know George is familiar with more than I am at this point, but there's definitely issues that people have with things following them home. What I would say is there's different protective rituals that people do. A lot, my own opinion, a lot's dependent on your own personal faith, because I think the degree that you believe in something and your own kind of inner strength on things, that gives you part of the protection. So if you really deep inside don't believe in what you're doing to protect yourself, it's not really going to protect yourself. So it varies what people do. I don't know if I've had things follow me home as much as the more I've done this, the more I've looked back on past experiences and realized that things were kind of showing themselves to me off and on my whole life. And so I think a degree of these things are transient. I've mentioned this on the show before. When we first moved here, I had a lot of weird things happen the first 6 months here. Did not do any ritual or anything in this house, and it just stopped. So what I personally do in my own house is I don't pay it attention. I'm thinking that they're coming trying to get my attention for a reason, and so if I give it attention, that's probably just going to attract, 10 more, or they'll decide to hang around more. So I just ignore it to the best case that I can, and in this case, it stopped. It's been, it's got to be close to a year without anything at all happening in this house. So that's my 2 cents on this. Tracy, your thoughts on protection and things following you home?
Well, when it comes to things following me home, I'm not real concerned about it. I am aware that it's a possibility, but I'm not real concerned with it. I think I agree with what you said there. Myself on the team, I don't, a lot of teams like to get together before and after the investigation, say a little prayer, maybe one to St. Michael, whatever the case may be. But I don't specifically require that in our team, but I do, in my own mind, before and after an investigation, I do say something, not necessarily to make sure something doesn't follow me home, but just as a safety precaution, I guess, But I do think that there's a possibility. I just don't worry about it because of what I believe and my faith, and I believe my faith is strong enough to repel that, even without having me be a let's see what would be the political thing to say. Maybe a holy roller or something of that nature. I'm not the most religious fella, but I do have, my faith is strong within myself, so I do think that plays a big part.
I would agree. George, how about you? I know you've answered this question like 1,000 times, but we're going to...
Yeah, well, for years I've been trying to get some of the female paranormal investigators to follow me home. I haven't had success with that.
Hi.
Did I hear a chuckle? Did I hear a chuckle from your daughter?
I don't know if it was Becky or, well, my daughter's got quite a priceless look on her face right now. So.
I was not laughing.
Yeah, she was just holding it in. There you go.
Matt, that's the strange thing about this field is that, and again, that's I guess the mystique surrounding it as well. If something follows you home, it must be bad. It must be evil. It's got to be something, and you never know whether or not there's just a connection in that place you've gone to investigate. Some spirit has found a liking to you or some kind of a connection to you. You remind them of somebody. There may be, hey, this is the first one I can actually, respond with. They actually, could sense that I was at this location. Maybe I can get them to understand my message, and they follow that person home, still trying to get that message across. Again, people talk about the fact of protecting themselves and, before they leave the location, telling them you can't follow me home. And, unless you're going to that location as an investigator on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, that contact could be lost or transferred to somebody else. So you wonder whether or not we were taking this in such a negative connotation as far as what we're experiencing out there that we miss these opportunities. And nobody wants to come home and, the lights are flickering and things are flying across the, well, actually some of us as investigators would love that. It'd be a lot cheaper with gas if we had all our hauntings at our own house. But a lot of people don't want to have that kind of thing going on at home. But I don't know. If you take a situation, let's say I started taking experiments like we used to do, Matthew, with the spirit box sessions in my backyard. We did them weekly for about 3 months, a couple summers back. And, as we did it, more and more activity or more spirits seemed to show up to communicate as if we were putting the Batman light in the backyard and all the spirits could see it. It's just this energy that was beginning to mushroom out more and more. So more spirits were coming in saying, hey, somebody's actually looking out there to talk with us, and we have messages, and they started coming in. If we did that on a consistent basis at a location, or a home or whatever it may be, and I'm sure there's investigators out there that are not heeding any warnings whatsoever, and they're doing EVP sessions in their home, or even just regular residents who love the ghost shows, and they picked up a recorder and they started doing this at home. And they may be bringing in more spirits who are trying to get messages across. I call it the Whoopi Goldberg syndrome from the movie Ghost. The minute that they all knew she could talk to them, they all came in because they all had stories. I think we've got that same opportunity. I think it's just got so much of a bad shadow over it of don't let anything follow you home that it's become one of those things that it's a standard in the field. And I think people should be a little more open-minded to what the potential is. When something comes home, to start communicating. If you hear a knockdown, you ask for it again. If it doesn't happen, it probably was just the house settling. But if you get those responses, there could be somebody just reaching out and trying to ask for your help. You never know.
Yeah, see, I think Dave, at least for me personally, my experiences are I think they just kind of pop in periodically anyway. Why, I don't know. Is it a message? Is it just they're passing through and I happen to see them? Melissa in the chat room has a question about, what about if it's someone you keep seeing, not following you home, but someone you keep seeing that isn't related to, the area you're at or somebody you didn't know. And, I guess I've had that happen, and, I really don't know. There could be the difference between, we a lot of times think that they're showing themselves so that we could see, so that they can convey something to us, but I guess there's also the possibility that it just may have been right place, right time, and we saw them, and they were just kind of passing through doing their thing. I don't know. I understand what you're saying, George, there about the missing an opportunity. It's very, very, very interesting. Along those lines, I just wanted to ask Becky before we get back to get your thoughts on this, because this is fresh in my mind, and I know we've talked about this before, but this is just fresh in my mind right now based on some things. You're in an investigation, or you're in an area. Tracy and George, what's the threshold for you in making the decision as to whether something is, I'm not saying inhuman, but something that may have ill intent? In what case you're going into a spot and you're kind of making that verdict as to, let's just assume there is activity, so it's not, non-activity versus activity. You're in a location, what would kind of draw that line? I know we all put the line in kind of different areas, but for you, what would draw that line between something to be concerned about versus just, hey, it's just activity, ignore it, don't worry about it? Tracy, I'll go to you first.
What concerned me the most is two things. If one of my investigators or myself became totally a different person. Two, if things started getting tossed around. I would say those two instances is where I'd draw the line, just because of the safety of the team.
Okay. How about you, George?
First and foremost, it's got to be the safety of your guests or your investigators. You could say the same thing, though, Matthew. We talked about this for residential cases. If the environment itself is not safe, either the clients are drinking or the house is so unkept that there are pathogens in the air or risks of tripping or anybody hurting themselves, you quit it. You're done with it. when you have signs from your team members that they are starting to have issues, you take them away from the common denominator, which is the location. Sometimes just taking them outside, getting them to regroup, and they come back in again. But if you're in the middle of a very serious part of that investigation, be it provocation, be it communication through any one of the pieces of equipment, obelisk, spirit box, EVP session, but they are starting to react to it, whether they're emotionally changing or their physiology is changing, they're getting sick, they're dizzy, whatever it may be, removing them from that environment and then trying to regroup. Now, if you can't, you stop it altogether. If it gets too heated, you just make sure that you protect them first and foremost. As far as yourself as an individual investigator, you have to pursue that risk. You understand that risk is involved with this field. So when you have a scenario where there are things being thrown, which to date, in all these places I've been to, I've yet to have, with my own eyes, visibly see anything thrown, meaning it starts at origin point and ends at origin point. If something comes from outside of my view and lands somewhere, I don't know if anybody threw it. I have no idea. But to see it from A to B, I've never seen that yet. But I would want to, at that point in time, stay there and see if I can't copy, record that, or repeat that, try to reenact whatever had transpired, but trying to find out whether or not this was legitimate paranormal phenomena that was going on. But as far as, when you stop something, understand that there's a risk involved with this. There are depths that we have to take that most people won't. We have to take those risks and understand that. So it's a hard call. I think your own body, Matthew, when you talk about, again, the malevolent, the demonic spirits that people say we could encounter in this field, you talk to, the people who are the elite in this field, the Bishop James Long, Keith and Carl Johnson, they all say the same thing. Your body knows when there is a fight or flight kind of a scenario in your instinct that there's something that's not right that's there. You have to decide it for yourself at that point in time. Is it worth the risk to continue forward with that investigation?
Yeah, one interesting thing that I have noticed, and this has been my own personal experience in the residential cases I've done, almost to a T, or almost to every single one, where there seemed to be none of these things I would consider inhuman. I'm just saying, not a nice person in the place. They're not necessarily, good intent. They're there. They have some anger or something towards the people living in the location. Almost in every case, I have felt like while we were there, they were trying their best to act like they weren't. So, we hear a lot about this, that, certain ones just aren't going to care, and they're going to be very much in your face. And to some level, I don't know, something about that disturbs me. My own personal opinion is it's to put additional psychological pressure on the tenants or on the people in the location, because they reach out for help. People come in and say, you don't find anything. Plus, you have mainstream people telling them it's all in your head, and so it's just a way to kind of isolate and break those people down. But kind of curious, both your cases, in both of your experiences, how often you saw that, where it tended to be more cat and mouse or like to hide versus something, getting very much right in your face. Tracy, any thoughts on that?
Well, we've only had one case where, if I remember correctly, that's actually happened. We were investigating a fire station, and it was literally where we were chasing this thing around. It would have us run around the fire trucks and everything else. It was pretty cool, actually. But when we had our one investigation there at the Coombs house, you were talking earlier about not so happy spirits, not necessarily evil or demonic, but ones that are maybe mad or upset. And you were saying about how they didn't want to be known right away. We kind of ran into that at the Coombs house when we were up in the attic. The atmosphere itself, everybody knew that there was something there. It just wasn't coming forward, and we kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to the point to where I believe he got so upset. That's where this whole tossing of the objects came into play. When he threw that coffee cup and that little 24-volt transformer, that was pretty much enough for us, and that's when we left. But you're right. This is a perfect case where we were getting hardly anything on our meters, but the more we pushed, the more we pushed, the more we pushed, the more we pushed, then he finally let us know that we were not welcome.
Yeah, that would be right up, in the cases that I'm thinking about. You could feel there was something there. I mean, there's certainly the heaviness and things, but weren't really getting a lot. And then it almost like it reaches a point where they can't take it anymore, and then it's just, you get a whole bunch of obscenities recorded or something. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
And I don't want to say, push is probably, if I say push, people think we were provoking. I don't mean that kind of push. Just our general questions and, just time after time after time after time,
Understand. Well, Becky, did that answer your question?
That definitely did. I mean, 'cause I really, like I said, I'm very interested in it, but I guess I can't get past the fear factor in my mind. Faith or no faith, I just had that going on. So, I mean, I really respect what you guys are doing. I'm jealous.
The way I describe it is, and this might just be me being kind of weird, is it's like people in the ocean and sharks. And I still won't go really far out in the ocean or anything. That's still always in the back of my mind. But the first couple times going out into spots, you don't know. You're going to see doors slamming. You don't really know what you're going to see at first. Particularly since a lot of this stuff wasn't out so much, when we were starting. And then the more you do it, it's kind of you get used to it. I think much like people that go out in the ocean a lot, if they go out there tons of times and don't see anything, I'm sure they're not thinking shark the whole entire time. So I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but it's the best that I can think of is kind of the process of getting used to doing it. The one thing that I do differently now, and some people have laughed at this, but I have a pretty good imagination, so I've actually stopped watching horror movies. I used to be a big horror movie buff. But
I am.
The last thing I need to do if I'm, hanging out by myself in some hallway of some asylum is, having all these visions of the grunge girl or the rain girl or the Exorcist or something behind a door. So, and plus I don't need to give any ammo to my own imagination or, not saying anything can do this, but since we don't really know what we're dealing with, if something can use that in some way, don't want to go there. So that is one change I have made, and that's just not to give my imagination any additional ammunition.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Two things. I know you're saying you don't watch spooky movies anymore, but the one that gives me the heebie-jeebies is that Mama movie.
I'm intrigued by it, but no, I haven't seen it.
You will not sleep for a month. But hey, hold on. My wife Susan wanted to say something to Becky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Hey, George. Hey, Becky. Hey! I just wanted to chime in and say something. I understand and I can relate to your inner fears, but I thought that I would change my whole outlook on it because I felt like I was giving negative vibrations out. When we were doing investigations, I would get quite frightened, but what I kept telling myself over and over and over was, these are people that you're communicating with, that someone loved, someone respected. It was somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's mother, and it kind of changed my whole outlook and drove me personally to want to get to know them and understand them and be as respectful as I possibly could during our investigation, understanding that they had relationships with people, and luckily we don't encounter too many negative energies. And that's, thanks, Matt. I just wanted to chime in there. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. Feel free to chime in during the course of the show, Susan. So, got another question, Becky?
Well, I'll wait for your daughter to chime in with a question.
Well, I've been bugging her on this, and she's been really tight-lipped, so I'm going to put her on the spot here. And just one thing on this is, so I had a number of things happen in this house when we first moved in, and we've talked about things, but I don't know, did you ever have anything happen in this house? Can you elaborate on what happened? Without, divulging anything too personal.
We ended up figuring out what it was, but I think it was like the first couple weeks in our house, and we had the Mernans over, and Grace was in the bathroom, and she ended up screaming because she was doing makeup and all that. She ended up screaming and running out, saying our bathroom was haunted, because whenever the boys, either in their bathroom or opening Josh's old room's door, like opening or our bedroom door and tossing it open, it makes the attic door to our room shake. So she got so creeped out she ran out of there. So that was funny. Marissa kept on saying that our room was haunted, our room's haunted, our room's haunted.
So you debunked it?
Yep.
But you don't have any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, well, you keep thinking, okay? Because we can put you on the spot again.
Why?
That's too much.
That's what a co-host has to do. You can't get stage fright. So, another question, Becky? Because I know we talked before. You used to watch the shows and stuff, too, so.
Oh, my Lord. I love it all. I do. I'm addicted to it. And, I'm very interested in, I'm a very sensitive person, so a lot of times I feel like I can feel things. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely crazy, but, dreams and such. I have very vivid dreams, and, when I first got married to my husband, I actually dreamed about, like, a plane crash, and woke up the next morning and said, oh, my God, I saw this plane crash with a certain number on the side. It was a single engine, blah, blah, blah. And so he was watching the news that morning, and those numbers came up on a plane crash that had crashed in mountains, and so I have weird things like that happen. So in my mind, I think there's spirits around this all the time. I don't really think of them as negative. It's just that I guess I think they shouldn't be there. Like, why are they here and not somewhere else? And I don't really understand the whole trapping issue of, why aren't they going towards the light? Why do you always hear that as you go towards the light? Can you explain to me what would cause people to still be here?
All right. I'll go to George first on that one.
I don't know. There's a lot of different. It depends on whether you talk to somebody who is a psychic medium or claims to be a psychic medium and what their judgment is to it. You've got so many different perspectives on the afterlife, and that's what we're going after. That's why we do what we do, is to try to get more of an understanding what it is we're communicating with, why it is there, and why it's not, as we all imagine, in the Bible, people floating around with harps and wings. It's not a realistic aspect of the collective consciousness of the other side. What I really believe, and this comes back to Matthew, Amanda, and it could not be more of a better example of what it is that I think really transpires on the other side. And this is not just from the communication established with her after her passing. And Becky, this was somebody who was part of my team. She was 23 when she passed in a car crash. Beautiful spirit, beautiful girl, and a great team member. Afraid of her own shadow, but she was so curious about this field too. But when we lost her, the communication was established almost immediately, and a lot of it was establishing, again, that she had crossed over, but yet she was still visiting family. She was still visiting me. She was showing up on investigations and assisting us, and has continued to do so to this day. What is interesting about it is that when her mother, of course, had gone to a psychic medium, and I had spoken to another psychic medium, and their correlation of their knowledge about her, about the accident, and about where she is now was a very promising thing about the aspect of that when they move on to collective consciousness, where everything is connected again on the other side. Once you're out of your body, you're no longer slave to the idea that you're an individual, that you are now part of everything around you, the energy around you. So I love that part of it, but it also gives them the ability to still be who they were, if you will, that they could go. It's almost like for yourself. If you go on a vacation, you take a trip to Italy or to Germany or to Hawaii, no matter what, eventually that trip ends, and where do you go? You go home. I think for a lot of these spirits, wherever they dwell, to them was their comfort zone, or there were memories there, good, bad, or otherwise, and they go home. And I think that's an important distinction for a lot of the investigators to go out there. As Susan was saying before, that these were people, these were family members. This was a place that had memories for them, good, bad, or otherwise, that this is a place that they'll go to visit. People always ask, why are cemeteries haunted? I think they go to visit where their body was laid to rest and see whether or not their family members still take care of it, or people come to visit there and talk to them at that site. I think there's a lot of truth to a lot of the different, I guess, if you will, the myths about this field, but it's just not been put together. Everybody always wonders why, when they just cross over, they go into the light, are they gone and that's it? They don't communicate with us anymore. I completely disagree with that. I think that enables them when they cross over into that light or that collective consciousness. That gives them the ability to visit you, me, a friend in Texas, a friend in Hawaii. It doesn't matter where they want to go. They have that instantaneous capability to go there at will. And I think that's just, for me, a very promising aspect of knowing what happens once we leave this world and we go into the next world.
Tracy, your thoughts?
Tracy stepped out, but I have to. He went to get some iced tea. I have to echo George in that I've been doing a lot of research on quantum physics and how they are researching that we're not actually spirits, but we're an actual consciousness, and that the consciousness never goes away, whether they want to come visit their loved ones, if they want to go off somewhere. But the more I read about it, the more feasible it seems. It's a very young science right now, but it just all makes more sense to me. I had a very, very religious upbringing, and there was a time in my life when I said, yeah, you're dying, you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell, but I'm no longer buying that anymore.
Well, I was deliberately going last because, Becky, I think I'm going to have the least useful answer of the group. Because 2 points. I have my own kind of religious beliefs on this, but I've approached this whole field of, we don't know what we don't know, and so it's all really theory yet. I personally like to think that they are spirits of people, but I have no way to prove that. There's a whole bunch of different theories out there. Could it be something that is able to just more or less mimic someone because of basically information we put forth? Is it energy we're putting forth ourselves? There's also the from a religious upbringing standpoint, on my end, there's also the point is, could this be what is described as purgatory? I've never seen it. I've seen where people have interpreted certain verses to mean you go immediately one place or the other, but I don't think that was. There's a lot of things that aren't very definitive there, and so I think that's again just another theory, in addition to some of the other things that are kicked around out there. So my approach is, I'm not sure what the phenomenon is. I just know there is definitely a phenomenon out there because I've seen it, experienced myself, and so I have viewed this whole thing as I'm not in this to push a specific theory. I view kind of what I'm doing as data gathering. So I'm going to try to collect as many things personal experience-wise, data-wise, recording-wise, hearing what other people have to say-wise, and just use that as a body of information that, hopefully can add to a larger body of information leading us to conclusions down the road. So hope that helped.
Yeah, it definitely does. It just, like you said, this is all about research. You guys are collecting data, and we don't know what we don't know. And I guess it's just amazing to me that we've came as far as we have.
Yeah, I personally, well, again, and I know I don't want to really start in debate on here, but in a lot of different fields, people that really cling to a certain specific theory will come up with any explanation possible to kind of debunk other theories on things. And personally, I think, the vast majority of people that have done this or gone into this have had enough experiences that they can't explain that. I have a hard time imagining someone thinking that there is absolutely nothing to any of this. There's obviously, there's enough odd things here. There's enough experiences that people have. Now, again, there's something to it. It's just a matter of what is it. And, the other likelihood is we talk a lot of times in terms of what is it being one thing. It doesn't mean that we could be experiencing, 2 or 3 different things out there. They don't necessarily all have to be all tied back to the same source of whatever this phenomenon is.
Right.
So you were mentioning about experiences. Have you had any specific experiences, anything you'd like to share?
Well, just recently.
But I will.
Well, just recently I had something weird happen, and my family, they swear that it's me, and that's fine, because it very well could have been me forgetting to do something, and it's just kind of crazy. I don't even know if I want to bring it up because it just sounds like ridiculous, but I will. My husband travels a lot, and my daughter was away from home, and I was here by myself, and with my dog and my cat, and I'm real crazy about making sure all the doors are locked. That's like number one thing. I'm always checking screen door, deadbolt, everything. And so the night that we had really bad storms, I think that was either Tuesday or Wednesday this week, I brought the dog to bed after bringing him in. And he's terrified of thunder and lightning, and I am too. So we're here holding each other. And so all through the night, it sounded like someone was in the house, and I'm like, okay, it's the house settling, it's raining, it's doing this or whatever. And so, long story short, I got up the next morning, and all the doors, or every lock on my door, there's like 3 locks on this one front door, were all unlocked. And if it had been a human being, I would have definitely heard them walking, on the floors. So it's like either I totally lost my mind that night and left everything unlocked, or I don't know how to explain it. So I'm still baffled by that,
Oh, wow. I got to tell you, I had a similar, when my wife and I first got married, the first house we were renting, a bunch of odd things happened there. Before I really was investigating, it's one of those things that I wish I could be back in there now, because I would have loved to have dug into this more. But the first thing that happened when we first moved in, there was a mudroom off to the side, and we would close all the doors, and they all had chain locks in them. And we'd wake up in the morning, and both the door from the mudroom and our back door would be open, just with the chain lock catching it, but the screen door would be locked. And in the mudroom, the outside door would be closed. All the windows in the mudroom would be closed, but that inner door would be open, but the other one would be locked. And it wasn't my wife or I going around opening them. So it was just a very odd thing, and that, we weren't really, it wasn't like we jumped up and go, oh, a ghost. So we're just like, oh, this is kind of weird. But then as we stayed there longer, over time, more and more weird things started happening in the house. My own personal opinion, history in that house was there was a family that lived in there a very long time. Not sure if they actually passed in the house, but whether it was they passed in the house or just had a fond attachment to the house because they spent so much time living there. That was the personal feeling I had there, was that it was just people associated with the residents. We had nothing scary, no no poltergeist or exorcist moments going on in the place, just noises going up and down the steps up and down the hall, that kind of stuff. So.
Now, the dog growled. I can tell you that Tango was growling, and I just thought it was because of the fear of the lightning and thunder and the rain. And I just kept telling him, it's just us, it's just the rain, And I had the thought of maybe I need to get up and check. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm here by myself. If somebody was out there, what am I going to do?
True. Well, I'll ask. I want a quick guy, and I'm sure both George and Tracy have more experience than I have on this, being down in Florida, where I personally love thunderstorms, and I know you get more of them there than we get here. Although this month has been pretty heavy with them. I noticed I hear a lot of times people say about thunderstorms and charging the air, and all I have is my own kind of sample size of data here, but I will say the most craziest experience and evidence-wise time I had at Tala was a time where there were thunderstorms going through that whole entire weekend, so some heavy ones, and actually the strongest personal residence or private residence investigation I had, where the strongest kind of physical activity happened, there were thunderstorms going on in the area. So just kind of curious. I'll kick over to Tracy first. Have you seen correlations there between activities and thunderstorms, or do you think it's just kind of a coincidence or just kind of an old wives' tale?
Well, it's hard to say if it's an old wives' tale or what, but I know that we did have, just at one location, though. I mean, we've been to other places during lightning storms, within the area, and really nothing increased. But there was this, the Russ house. It was raining and lightning in and everything real bad, and we got a lot of activity that night. But I think the activity, after we investigated that night, we found out some information over the next couple of days that there used to be a farmhand or a stable boy, that used to come into the house when it was thundering and lightning. Big Mama would let him come in and live underneath the stairway until the storm was over. So I think in that case, it was because that's what the spirit was used to, is thundering and lightning, so he came in. But other than that, Matt, we haven't had any notable increase during a lightning storm or anything like that.
Interesting. How about you, George?
Well, this really falls under your expertise, Matthew. Statistics.
Well, yeah, and I'll say on my end, I've seen, but again, the sample size isn't very large, so I'm curious as to what other people are seeing in regard to this.
I mean, people are there's a lot of theory out there about the electromagnetic field charged in the air during an electrical storm, but there's also talk about different things that occurred during a hurricane or tectonic plate shifts, earthquakes. Even what happened with the nor'easter storm, Sandy, that just seemed to stir up. Anything that does some sort of atmospheric disturbance could perpetuate more activity on it. But again, because it's not been documented enough, it's all still in theory. I've found, especially hitting St. Augustine or the old Florida ghost town, but the old Florida ghost town's hard to judge because I don't like to go there because it's in the middle of the Ocala National Forest, Kerr City, and they've got mosquitoes the size of Volkswagens out there. I don't like to go out there during the summer. But we always go there in the wintertime. There always seems to be activity. But the places I've been to in St. Augustine, the lighthouse on 3 occasions, the old jail, when it seems to be colder, the air is more condensed or more charged. The activity seems to be more active during that time. During the thicker, moistured summer, it's not, the humidity doesn't seem to have that same charge to it for whatever reason. The activity seems to slow down considerably. And you got to remember, too, when we're going out there in the colder weather, we're bundled up. So any physical contact that you hope for is almost dismissed because you're completely covered. The chances of you feeling yourself being touched, unless you're being picked up and thrown against the wall, is just not going to be realistic. And you get around to the summertime, it's just so brutally hot, and then the activity just seems to drop substantially. There could be a big factor to it, a good reality to the fact that when there's more of a dense charge in the air, whether it's rain, whether it's snow, whether it's a lightning storm, high winds, things of that nature, could correlate 100% with the activity being more increased. Just more research, Matt, that needs to be done on it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, another one related to that is I've always heard about, full moons. Again, limited data sampling, but I have found absolutely nothing. If anything, the slower nights that I've been out have been on the full moons. And my own personal opinion on that is you are increasing the likelihood of, depending on if you're in a location that has windows or an outdoor location, of with that exterior light, increased things that could be mistaken, shadow-wise because of that cast of light. But I have not seen any correlation on that. So that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tracy.
This is for Matt and George. So would you guys think that, just to get maybe possibly some better data, that maybe we should include maybe something like a barometer in our equipment?
Barometers are used. People will even go to the aspect of just getting helium balloons just to save them some cost. But you can get barometric meters at pretty decent prices. Again, a lot of the equipment that we use out there, as David Roundtree's talked about, it was not made for ghost hunting. It was made for other things, and we kind of morphed these pieces of equipment. And the EMF meter that electricians use for homes, we'll take that and use that for our field. So it's not made for that, but people are adapting different items. And they said they'll take helium balloons and bring them in, and you'll see the helium balloon drop when, in hours rather than in days. And that shows that the pressure is dropping in the room. They'll use stuff like that as well. There's a reason why we use Tesla coils. There's a reason why we use Jacob's ladders, all these different pieces of electronic equipment to create a lightning storm in a bottle, if you will. When we're going out, we're doing these experiments and we're doing these investigations to see what works and what doesn't. I've not seen really a consistency when somebody brings an EM pump out to a location that the experiences go through the roof, that spirits are manifesting on demand. I'm not seeing that kind of a thing yet. So, there's still nothing that really can prove that this is the theory to go with. We're still out there stabbing with a sword in the dark trying to find our target. And it may be something very, very simplistic that we're completely missing. Or, again, from the aspect of what's happening on the other side of the veil, an involuntary action, that don't want to get involved with it, that they don't want to manifest no matter what we provide for them to do so. It's not the aspect of they don't have enough energy to do this, they're very weak on the other side. They may be just choosing not to. Maybe it's part of the rule on the other side. Don't show yourself, full on standing there and for 20 minutes as a full-body apparition answering questions. Why? Number one, because they're going to get freaked out. And number two, the minute that this shows up on YouTube, we're going to get called out. Everybody's going to want to do the same thing. So, I think there's a lot of different things that are going on the other side. Again, with that collective consciousness where it's an agreement, let's not give them everything that they want. Or as John Zaffis said one night, Matt, if you heard him too, we talked about this, baby steps. Because if we had all the answers right now, I don't think society would be prepared for it, to be honest with you, about the other side.
I would agree. And I would just add, on more of a macro scale, Weather Underground website, the meteorology, not the terrorist group website, has really good kind of detailed printouts, but again, it's more on a macro scale. It's for the town that you would plug in, not the local airport. It would actually be more town conditions, kind of weather spotters and things. And so I, in general, record that just to see again if it's. But I've done it more from the standpoint of a windy day, higher winds. There could be a chance of you got to keep that in mind with when you're picking up noises. Could it be the wind blowing something outside versus something where the winds are calm, things along that line. But I have been looking to see if I'm seeing any correlations with barometric pressure or temperature or the weather activities. But again, it's such a small sample size at this point. This is something that would need to look into in much more detail going forward. Melissa had a question in the chat room, which I thought was pretty interesting. I got to scale back a little bit here. where she said, I believe she was told this week that someone was trapped here because she was mad and couldn't forgive him. Your opinions is, do you think that is possible? Can we physical non-past, again, so many assumptions here as to what we're dealing with, but, assuming it's a past human spirit, can the emotions of someone on this side keep someone around in this area? Tracy, I'll put you on the spot first.
Oh, I definitely think it's possible. I mean, because we're talking about emotions here, and emotions in this field play a huge part in it, huge part. So I totally believe if there's an individual that, let's just say Aunt Jane loved Uncle Joe so much that she's just devastated that he passed, and because she is so devastated and just can't get over it, I do believe it's a good possibility that it would be her that actually keeps him around just because of that emotional state.
Interesting. What are your thoughts, George?
Well, it's a very, very touchy subject. If you talk to any psychic medium, they'll tell you yes, without hesitation, that we are a factor to their existence still in our realm, that they're not let go by you. Yet at the same time, again, if we take it to an argument or a debate scenario, regards to this again, why is this not being relayed? If there's such a powerful connection there, we can sit there and go, is the spirit more than willing to be patient enough for that person to come to grips with the passing and let that individual go and finally say, it's, you're dead, it's time to move on? Or is it a scenario where, again, it's that person manifesting the aspect of that spirit still being there because the grief is so critical or the anger is so critically harsh in their mind that they've created, if you will, a duplicate of that energy of that person, and that's what still is lingering around, that subconscious manifestation. Again, we can look at any one of those different factors involved with it. A lot of the times, Chris Fleming was one person who talked about this, that when we talk about residential cases, as an example, people who have had a lost love that has crossed over, and they believe that they're still there, and sometimes just establishing, yes, but it's time for them to move on, as psychic mediums will do with them in a reading. It's time to let them go, is really trying to get them on the path of healing themselves. Not so much the aspect of helping the person on the other side, because they may not even be there. And when they have self-healed, that manifestation that they've created may dissipate and no longer exist at that point in time. So it's a slippery slope in those circumstances there. There's been experiments where people have gone out to locations and the lead investigator or the host investigator has created a persona that doesn't exist in that building or hadn't existed as far as history is concerned. And they'll say, oh, Matt Slozer, the ghost, lives here, and Matt Slozer likes to come out at night and he'll grab you on your ankle. He loves to grab ankles. He just loves to tease people like that. He used to do that to his children, so he does it all the time. And people will start to get EVPs of Matt Slozer, and people will have claims of being grabbed on the ankle. Is it again, like group prayer, group manifestation, where they all believe in it so much that it becomes a powerful reality or part of the energy of that existing building? And so now, even those people leave, that building still maintains that energy, that thought process from those investigators, where the next group of people, without being told anything, could go in there and get EVPs of Matt Slozer or experiences being grabbed on the ankle. How much of the influence of those investigators in this field, same with those residents, those people who are having grief-stricken events in their home, and they still believe that their loved ones are still there, could all be manifested by themselves. This is the research that we're doing right now.
So, George, you would correlate this with a thought form spirit?
Yeah, without question, it's a possibility. You have to look at every example of it. It's the old saying that we used to say, the older I get, the smarter my parents become. Well, the longer that we do this, the less we know. because there becomes more variants of possibilities out there. Is there something going on? Yes. Without question, there are phenomena that we can label as paranormal, which is above the norm, that is occurring in our world, in our surrounding universe. But what is causing it? We see the effect. What is causing it? Are we causing it? Is the universe causing it? Are spirits causing it? Are demons causing it? This is the research we do right now.
Right. So, George, with keeping that, going along that lines of the thought form, spirit, would how many residual cases do you think that could actually be the case?
Well, I couldn't give you. I couldn't quote a percentage. I really couldn't quote a percentage. You have to again. I think a lot of the circumstances, unless they've set up a very detailed description. Let's take the Lizzie Borden house. People see pictures of Lizzie Borden. People are always in there with the stories. They could manifest that scenario where that becomes part of the residual haunting, the energy that's been emitted by the investigators as well. Again, this is all just looking at it from a hypothetical situation. It could also be that there's visitations by the spirits of the Lizzie Borden house. We don't know. But if you take a place that maybe doesn't have the story behind it, I'll give you a perfect example. Matt knows it is Curse City, where we went in there blindly. We had no idea the history of this place. We built our history of this place based upon the evidence collected. In other words, the proprietor there gave us no information. When we gave some of the names that we were capturing in these investigations, he had no clue as to who they were, or is unwilling to give us his knowledge of who they were, because there's a lot of dark secrets with this town. But is that, again, in that circumstance there, the intelligent spirits, residual, that we're capturing both of those, and those are actual energy imprints to those buildings from the time that it was active? Possibility. Could other investigators have come in before us and manifested that? That's a possibility too. And again, it's hard. We are still really kind of reaching out there and trying to figure out what it is that we're communicating with on a consistent basis. And to this date, unless, Tracy, there is an investigator out there that has just found the Mona Lisa of locations, and every time they go in, there's a manifestation. Every time they go in, there's physical manipulation. Every time they go in, there's direct communication over the EVP recorders, the digital audio recorders, the spirit boxes. Such a consistency, but they've just not gone public with it yet because they're kind of keeping it to themselves, which is, again, completely adverse to what we want in this field, which is be able to grow and have everybody understand what works well, what doesn't. But if that doesn't exist out there, if that location and that investigator doesn't exist, then we're all still in the same spot we've been for the last 30 years, bits and pieces of information with no clear concept or idea of what it is that we're dealing with.
But I'm hoping in the, by doing this and us all going on these different paths that hopefully this will help someone in the future be able to piece things together on this. Now, I have a question. I'm going to take a quick drink and bio break for everyone here in a second, but when we come back in the second hour, we've talked in the past about rules, or is there some type of rule book of conduct on the other side, and so I have some questions regarding to that, as well as we will have more questions from our guest tonight, Becky, and I'm going to put my daughter on the spot. She needs to have some questions ready when we come back. So
I don't have any.
Well, you have 5 minutes to think about it. Here we go.
Grr.
We'll be back.
Look at those clothes.
everybody. We're going to bring Tracy, George, and Becky, and Shaylin all back. Is everybody back on?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm giving my daughter a little bit more time to think here.
I have one.
All right, we'll lead with that, then I'll get into my thing. And I have to say ahead of time before anyone accuses me of being some kind of psycho stage dad or something, that Shaylin, who wants to join our team and will be able to at some point, has asked to be on the show, and I think this is good experience for her. But I told her, since she's getting a little bit of stage fright right now, that this is a 12-year-old asking a question, so it doesn't have to be anything overly profound. And now I'm embarrassing the heck out of her right now, but so I'll just go ahead and let her post her question to the roundtable.
That's so bad. Shaylin, just make believe you're on the phone talking to a friend. That's the secret.
Exactly.
So, like, I'm talking with Claire?
Yeah.
Has anybody had any creepy experience somewhere, like their first time in a building or something?
What was your first, what you call, like, creepy experience?
Yep.
Okay. Tracy.
My first creepiest experience walking into a building was at my local Walmart.
And still one of the scariest. All right, George.
I don't know if I can remember that far back. Oh, my God. First creepiest. Okay, yeah. Actually, it was probably one of my first residential cases, if not the first. And it turned out to be something that we will now label Matt as a demonic, but, to date, we still don't know the whole scenario behind it. But that location had some really wild things going on there. But that was one of the first times I expected that if I turned around, the girl from The Ring was going to be standing right behind me, or the girl from The Grudge going, whatever she does. Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, a bunch come to mind, but probably the first real odd one, just when I was just getting more involved and started into doing this. There was a bed and breakfast we were investigating, and there seemed to be someone. First of all, we were getting like this old-fashioned perfume, and then the best way I could describe it was it just felt like just cold, like somebody was just putting their hand like on my head, on my shoulder, on my side of my face. It was really kind of weird, and so I'm like, okay, if you're here, I'm like, and you're trying to touch me, just hold my hand. And someone had one of the laser thermometers in my palm. And it dropped like 20 degrees and then went back up. It was the strangest thing. And then we started getting responses on the meters and things and asking questions. And then when I asked the question, did you have any children, that must have upset whatever the entity was. I had my first experience of really that, and it was actually one of the most intense I ever had, of tightness in the chest, feeling like you're going to throw up, just really, really feeling very, very intense, and then like everything was gone and the activity was gone the rest of the night. So obviously something history-wise, we didn't dig anything up connected to it, but obviously something connected with a woman where children, whether through loss or disowned or something along those lines, obviously children was a sore spot with that entity, and so that's probably my weirdest. I guess I would just add to the first house that I ever went to where there was something not nice in the location, and because it had very interesting claims there ahead of time. We decided ahead of time, make sure nobody gets split up. We're not going into any rooms by ourselves. And I'd be walking down the hallway and hearing out of rooms like, hey, hey, or hear my name. And then when we went up into the attic, which, George, you mentioned the Grudge girl, I cannot for the life of me go up into any attic's crawl space now without that scene in my head, which is one of the reasons why I don't watch movies anymore. I went up into the attic, and I heard plain as day a woman's voice from the back of the attic say, Matthew, Matthew. And so that was also a pretty freaky one. So yeah, so that's that. So good job, Shaylin. Just keep thinking, and you'll get more and more comfortable as we go through the summer.
Yeah, I thought of another creepy one though too, Matt. The creepiest one I think
go ahead.
was when I was at Myrtle's Plantation, and the front office booked myself and Chris Fleming from Psychic Kids, Children of the Paranormal, in the same room, and it was only one bed. That was creepy.
I could see that.
I told them though that it would be okay as long as I spooned to the left. I had to be on the left side. That would be okay.
I think, Matt, my actual freakiest place or scariest place was this museum up in Tallahassee. I mean, there's just so much stuff in this museum, that all original stuff, creepy dolls. Oh, man.
Really?
Can I ask a question to Tracy?
Sure.
Going back to, because Mike Bowler, who's my co-host, he's in the chat as well, had mentioned, if you could ask this, when the coffee at the fire station, the coffee cup and the battery flew, did you guys capture that on film?
What we caught, the actual of it flying, no. But, no, we did actually catch it on film, no.
What I wonder is, do you think they know that, which way our equipment is pointing, because of the rarity of capturing when these events are happening?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Matt?
Yeah, no, I think this leads right into what I was going to ask you guys about, and I know, George, you've actually, I think I've heard it first from you, because I know you've tried to get information to this regard on some of the spirit box sessions and things, as to, is there some type of, for lack of a better word, rule book or code of conduct that they need to adhere to on the other side? Are there certain things that they're just not allowed to do over on that other side? And to some degree, when we say that there should be more deliberate contact, is I guess one kind of theory that I thought about is, if there are these rules, could possibly be one of the rules be no contact at all in the first place? And are we in touch with more the, for lack of a better word, kind of rebels or rebellious souls on the other side? So, I mean, could it be that they still want to get that physical manipulation, but they know where the cameras are and don't want it caught? I think that's a very valid point, particularly since you said last week when we were talking about how they see there's evidence now or stories coming out of them being able to manipulate and use new technology that comes out. So, they seem to be learning, as we're learning about them, they seem to be learning about us just as well and adapting.
I agree. I don't know. We look at it from an aspect of science, the way that it's taught right now. I mean, we mentioned this time and time again about the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, which was based on Carl Sagan's work about alien contact, and why, if there is already an existence of that, why is it only fleeting contact, whether it's those people who claim to have been abducted to the sightings that we have out there. But again, nothing is substantial, nothing's concrete. And in the film Contact, when Jodie Foster makes contact with the aliens in the form of her father to soften the blow, if you will, his mention to her is, when she says, I have no evidence to take back with me, what am I going to, and he said, baby steps. Everything's in baby steps. We got to take, small steps at a time. And a couple of weeks back, John Zaffis was on, and we talked about exactly that. He agrees. John Zaffis said also, since it's on record, since it was on the show, about that there are things out there that have been discovered that has not been revealed to the public yet, and the reason being is because society in general is not prepared for it. Now, I think that there may be a mutual cooperation, unbeknownst to us, between both sides to make sure that it is not released to that extent. The collective consciousness also have hints of precognition capability or being able to predict the future. So do they know which way we're going to turn? We're going to work with our equipment. Do they know where we're setting up our equipment? And these motions are done ahead of time. Now, there are times where some of this evidence is collected. It's captured. It's been captured on the television shows. And you wonder sometimes, is it, again, because it's for entertainment purposes, is this manipulated by the shows themselves, that's not really evidence, but it's fake? Go back to the Goldfield and the very first Ghost Adventures premiere or debut with the brick and the board being thrown. Was that manipulated? Was that realistic? We don't know, but we should see a lot more of this evidence being posted out there on YouTube, and we don't. We still see a lot of pareidolia. We still see a lot of matrixing that's being presented out there, and a lot of orbs that's being presented out there, but still nothing substantial enough to say that there is a consistency out there. So is the ruling presiding factor on the other side, don't give them too much because they're not prepared for it? I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that also. And if we're going to perhaps base what we think we know about the spirits on the other side, being angry, being happy, jovial, whatever the case may be, Matt and George, do you think they do sometimes get just flat out bored with us?
I get bored with people. Do you?
All the time.
It would only make sense. I would say, again, there's got to be somewhat of a chuckle on the other side about how we, go around in the dark and ask the same redundant questions over and over again. There's only so much outside of the box work that we can do. It's good to be fresh. I think it helps them to want to communicate with us as well. It's almost when you see that homeless guy come up and he gives you that same song and dance, and you're like, yeah, I don't have any money, pal, sorry, and you walk away. And then somebody comes up with something fresh, and you're like, that's almost worth entertaining. Here's $5. It's really the difference on how that approach may be, that they're sitting there going, the same redundant thing over and over again. I'm not going to bother with it. I'm not going to even entertain the thought. Again, everything comes down to supposition. Why do some investigators get contact, and why do some investigators go cold an entire night? And then they go to the next location, and it's flip-flop, completely different. Everything right now is so up in the air in this investigative field that we still have to, and to the likes of somebody like a Matthew Slozer, who has the patience and the time to do all this statistical work to say there are patterns. We are just not paying attention to them. And the sooner we can get these patterns out there to the public eye or to this field, I think it's going to help us to collaborate more on what it is that we're collecting in these specific locations, a Trans-Allegheny, a St. Albans, a Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, a Kerr City. That consistency is so critical to be able to decide whether or not that communication can be established on a regular basis, whether it's the investigator, the equipment, or the procedure. Something has to be a common denominator in making that contact.
Got a couple good things here, a couple good questions in the chat room. I also want to add that anyone who knows me or knows my sense of humor, that when I pass, I will do the best I can to try to freak out as many the investigators as possible. So I won't get bored for a while. I'll at least get a couple of years out of messing with people. And also, since we mentioned orbs, give them their time. Yeah, they've been nice. The orbs have been pretty nice to me the last couple of weeks. So we'll be good on that. Before I get to the two questions in the chat room, I just wanted to go back to our guest Becky here, and not necessarily any questions, Becky. I just want to get, obviously, we've covered a lot of different ground tonight. Just wanted to curious as to your thoughts or any questions based on what you were hearing us say.
Well, I tell you what, in my mind, I think that the investigators that get a lot of the responses and stuff, it may be more the individual versus your equipment or the time of day or whatnot. I really feel that, if these people are really used to be here and they were people, then they're going to be more apt to talk to people they think are sincere, are open, are respectful. And, although I love watching Ghost Adventures, I get very upset and very uneasy whenever there's a lot of provocation going on. I think there's a line you shouldn't cross, and I guess some of these shows, they do, in my mind, cross the line and aren't as respectful to these spirits as they should be.
Well, I'm curious because there is some debate and discussion as to what actually constitutes provoking. Mm-hmm. So as someone who just watches these things and doesn't agree with that practice, how would you define, where's that line for you as to what would be considered provoking a spirit versus what wouldn't?
I guess in my life, I think that cussing at someone or calling them very nasty words, in life, I wouldn't want to see that done to a spirit or a ghost or whatever you want to call it. I just feel like, yeah, you can yell at them and say, hey, come on, give me something. I want more than just a door slam or whatever. But when they cross the line and start calling them bad names, I think that's just uncalled for.
Okay. I was going to say I was seeing some things in the chat room. I always consider, but again, this is just my own opinion, which is just like a bud. Everyone's got one. If you're intentionally trying to piss it off, that's what I would consider. There's things you can do to try to get a response. If I've been at locations, war locations, where we've discussed the other side to try to see if we could get a response. Again, it wasn't done in a derogatory way, but just talking about it could stir something up. As far as the chat goes, two things here. Matt in the chat posted about his story, which I've already heard about in North Dakota, which is pretty cool. So I don't know if you have access to a phone and willing to call in, Matt, but that's a pretty good, pretty interesting story you have about what happened to you in North Dakota. And then Todd had a question about, this is to George, your statement about we're not ready for the info. Do you think it's more a nature of, and Todd, please correct me if I don't construe this the right way, we're not ready for the info, or is it a matter of they don't want us to have it, or for some reason are hiding information from us?
Tomato. It really, depends on the perspective of the reader. When they're reading into something like that, it's. I don't think it's an aspect of nanny boo boo. I've got information that you don't. I think that they again, from a collective consciousness, and this is again the direction I think that a lot of the people, the field investigators out there, are trying to more understand of that it's a universal consciousness on the other side, which again Thomas Fusco always talks about. He talks about the universal library, that everybody's memories, experiences, knowledge is all pretty much accessible to any other spirit out there as well. So you may not be talking to Aunt Rose when Aunt Rose is supposedly on your recorder. It could be another spirit using that information, and there could be something malevolent using that as well. So again, there's a lot of risk about what we talk about here. But you look at this and it may be laughable, but it just, as Becky was saying before, that she loves ghost adventures. You wonder whether or not, because here's a platform to be able to bring those baby steps forward, how these shows, particularly Haunted Collector and nowadays and Ghost Adventures, are getting so much tremendous evidence while they're doing investigations. Maybe the other side is very well aware of these shows and says this is the best form, the best way, rather than the individual investigators, which we'll work with still, but very, very, very minimally. Let's go after these big guys, the ones that are on public television, the ones that are known worldwide, and slowly produce this evidence for them so that they can soften the blow as the communication gets stronger and gets better. And then, Ghost Adventures lately has just been knocks and bumps. Maybe they saw the ratings are going down, so they don't want to talk to them anymore. I don't know. You look at the possibilities, but why, things happen the way that they do, and who is chosen and why they happen the way that they happen on the shows. We've talked, again, with the people from Haunted Collector. They say, because of John's 40-plus years in this field, he just has this almost relationship, if you will, with the other side, that he knows when things are going to be happening, and things tend to happen around him. Is there, a connection between them? Anything's possible, but it's a tough question to answer because it could be one or the other. We're still looking to find that answer.
Interesting. And Julie had a very interesting point in the chat about, are we not meant to know certain things for certain reasons? I guess that kind of leads to a point of, could there be aspects of this that are kind of like Pandora's box or a genie in a bottle that does this could this lead to could this knowledge lead in some directions to something that could be used in a not good way? Again, I don't know. This is totally theory. I'm kind of totally out there on this, but it's an interesting concept, interesting idea. Go ahead, Tracy. Sorry.
Well, I tend to believe that it could possibly be, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by no means, but let's just say the government comes out all of a sudden next week and says, hey, we do have proof aliens have existed for years. We've known about it for 60, 70 years. They've been here for a long time. They come out and announce something like that. Other governments around the world are in with them, announcing the same thing. So just on that aspect alone, how would that change, say, somebody's religious aspect?
Right.
True.
I think it could be basically along the same lines. I'm not saying the government's telling us, about they're not allowing us to let people know about spirits, but along those lines.
All right. Well, here we.
Matt.
I think.
I'll ask Matt. I'll ask you, and Tracy the same question. If you established at your favorite location communication back and forth, Matthew, with a particular spirit, you've befriended each other, if you will. There's become a trust factor. And one day, through the digital audio recorders, so the spirit box has, no aspect of that contamination from radio waves. This is a straight real-time EVP recorder, back and forth. You ask a question, they respond, and they go, hey, Matt, I'm only going to tell you this, but here's the thing. When you die, you go to the same place everybody else goes. Doesn't matter if you were a murderer, if you were pedophilia, if you were a rapist. It doesn't matter what you did in life. Everybody goes to the same place, collective consciousness, and it's an amazing universe. What happens on Earth and what you do in your human form has no bearing on what happens when you cross to the other side. How powerful is that information if that was leaked to the public?
Very bad thing.
Oh, that would be a very, very bad thing.
Devastating.
If I'm just going to be kind of, and kind of no pun intended here, kind of devil's advocate on this, though. If we do talk about, even on the religious, standpoint of deception and deceptive things, who's to say that friend I have that's telling me all this information isn't feeding me a bunch of BS? I mean, we still don't know. I mean, it's still not definitive. And so, am I sure a lot of people would change how they would do things? Yes, but it still is not definitive, because, again, it's just you would be putting all your trust in that source is credible. And
well, I'm giving you
really
I'm giving you a Matthew Slozer and a spirit connection. Now let's take that same scenario, and that spirit shows up on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Okay.
Full body apparition. Hey, I'm here to do a tell-all. All right. Regardless of whether or not this is total deceit or total honesty, either one of those, the masses would believe it, 100%.
I agree. I agree there. You would have more people that would buy it than that wouldn't. I would just say that it's not necessarily credible.
Tracy,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just saying, you're absolutely right. Definitely.
No.
I think I have. Sorry, go ahead, George. Sorry.
I was going to say it's a scary aspect because, again, this is where, there's so many people out there that believe that we've been doing this for a long time and we've done so much as far as progress is concerned. We really haven't. We haven't progressed as humans for millennia at all. I mean, we really haven't. We still have the same insecurities, the same phobias, the same hatreds, the same racisms. I mean, all these different things that go on in our lives have been there for a long time. Technology-wise, we've gone leaps and bounds, even in the last 2 or 3 decades, but we are nowhere near where we need to be as human forms of intellect and understanding. We don't even understand our own consciousness and why things happen the way that we do. So we've got a long way to go in this field, a long way. your daughter hopefully will carry on that tradition, and her children will do the same. We've got a long way to go before we really have true answers as to what it is we're talking to and what its intent is as well.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I'd say too is try not to get into different beliefs here, because we try to be respectful of everybody's beliefs on the show. But I'm sure you guys have heard this as well, that there are some out there that hold the belief that we are actually, in doing this work that we're doing, helping set the stage for some big lie to come down the pike. Now, whether we believe that or not is, again, it's just another opinion that's floating out there. But it is an interesting point. I did want to bring on. I did ask Matt to call in with his North Dakota story. I believe, based on the area code, that's who this is. I'm just going to bring him on. Mr. Matt, are we speaking to?
You are.
You want Night Dead? Yep. All right. How you doing tonight?
Not bad. Hey, just real quick, on the end of that, tail end of that, you're talking about what we can understand and what we can't. And, the one thing that popped into my mind right away was how much of percentage of our brain do we actually use?
8 to 10%.
Right. So as we evolve later in life, whether you believe what you believe, you would think that sooner or later, maybe as we evolve and we're able to use more of our brain, maybe some of their perceptions and whatnot and senses will tap into one day as well.
Yeah, God willing.
All right. I've been all over the country. I've been different places in the world in the Air Force, and
Go
ahead.
I did too. Air Force.
Oh, okay, cool. And no matter where I went, I grew up on the East Coast. I've always tried to keep an open mind of things, and love learning about other cultures and, so to speak, what it's like to be in another guy's shoes for a day. That being said, it was one summer multiple times because I had a girlfriend out on the Indian reservation, and would drive out to the Indian reservation an hour to an hour and a half to go hang out with her on the weekends. And, of course, you start learning about some of their folk, stories and different things. And there's different areas that on the reservation that they say, oh, don't go to because of this or that. And, they start telling you stories. But the one place we had gone up to, I never heard any stories about. And being in our late teens, early 20s, hey, what's there to do in North Dakota? Not a whole lot. It's a summer day. Let's go grab a 6-pack or 12-pack and go up and go knock a few back. So we go up there, and I hadn't been drinking at all. So I don't think I was in no altered state of consciousness at all. But we're up right outside a town called Newtown, actually. And right across the river, or right across Lake Sakakawea, was an Indian reservation, and they have a bridge. I don't know the name of the bridge, but it's the longest bridge in North Dakota. So we're way up on top of a hill, looking down on top of everything. And as I was telling Matt, I was up there, and you got tall grass, and the wind's blowing, and I'm just kind of taking it all in. I'd never been up to this place before, dirt road up into this top of this hill overlooking the lake. So sometimes, I don't know if you want to call it daydreaming or what, but I started getting these violent flashes in my mind. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Something just don't feel right. And all of a sudden, I started feeling really bad. And then I had no other way to explain it except for something's coming to get us. And that's the only feeling I had. And I was on being trained in the military with certain things. You're always looking around to see what's going on in your surroundings. And I just went into that instinctive mode of something's coming to get us, I got to look around. And I'm looking around, there's nothing. And then I get a flash. And the only thing I could, like I told Matt, I could explain it was some kind of creature. Something, whatever you can imagine, creature, 4 legs, or whatever, based on what you've seen, is coming to get us. And I was like, whoa, I don't like this. This is bad. And I never said anything to anybody when I was up there. My girlfriend come over to me, She says, what is wrong with you? And I said, why? She says, you're white. You are stark white. Something's wrong. And I said, yeah, dude, something's coming to get us. And she's like, are you dead serious? And I'm like, yeah, I have a bad, bad feeling. And she's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And her sister started freaking out. And I said, all right. So we jumped in the car. There was 4 of us. Jumped in the car, sped away with no explanation. And once we got down off the hill, I was like, okay, you got to explain that to me. What the heck was all that about? And she says, well, we go up there sometimes. Sometimes we don't, depending on what's going on. But something's going on up there today. And I'm like, okay, explain. What is going on? She says, if you know any of the stories about around there, before they built the Garrison Dam and filled that all in, she said that used to be a pretty big cliff. And long, long time ago, the stories go that when people want to commit suicide, right up where we were at in that area, they would throw themselves off that cliff. And I'm like, okay, that maybe explains a little bit about what I was feeling up there. And there's many, many different places that I've gone with them. And I don't know if it's just, them being scared, not that I would get scared right away, but it would automatically put my defenses up. And I'd start thinking, okay, what's going on here? And I don't know if it's just stories passed down or whatnot, but like I said, that one place I was at, that was one place they hadn't told me a story. We just drove on up there, and I got some real bad feelings. And she was like, okay, we ain't messing around. Let's go. Let's get the heck out of here. So.
I was say I don't know any teams in North Dakota, but I know some in Minnesota, so I don't know if there's been any that have been able to get over that way or not that has any stories on this. But if you hear this on the archives, please, and know anything about that location, please send me a message on the Sunday Night Dead group page or Sunday Night Dead Facebook page, and we'll dive into that some further. But, yeah, kind of an odd experience. George, I'm sorry, you sound like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the thing is the things that you learn up there when you're not ever around an area, the stories about, even in Minot, where I was at, which was nowhere near the Indian Reservation, there was a lot of weird cultish stuff going on. And I don't know if it was easier for people to do cultish stuff up there because it's so sparse and you could be out and nobody would mess with you and whatnot. But there was areas in Minot that they would ban you from going because I swear it had to do something with the Manson murders or of something up there, and where there was bodies that they found that they weren't sure. They didn't want anybody walking across other bodies that they didn't know in one area that would just one day surface up through the dirt. But there's lots and lots. I had lots of stories told to me when I was out there about cultish things that would go on up in that area.
Wow. George, were you gonna say something? I thought I heard somebody else.
No, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, no, very, very interesting, and that was also the context of that story was when Shaylin was asking about the creepiest experiences. Matt had shared that in the chat room, and I remember that story and found it very interesting. I also think there's a whole lot. Teams out west probably are more familiar than those of us on the East Coast, but I'm sure, again, just the whole difference in cultures and things, that I'm sure there's a lot of stories and things from the Native American side of things. I know we've talked in the past about trying to get teams on. If there was a team that did from the Native American side to get kind of their perspective on things. So if anyone's hearing this that is tied there too, let me know. Yes.
And then didn't you were telling me though, one of the areas that freaked you out really bad and people had a lot of bad experiences was supposed Native American area, high traveled area? I can't remember if that was one of your stories.
No. It's there have been areas, but nothing jumps out as a specific issue or thing there.
Well, Matt, let me jump here.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
And the other, Matt, I got to say, buddy, I was also in the Air Force, and when we did some missile stuff up there at Minot, at our initial briefing, when we got to Minot, they did tell us about places not to go because of the murders, so on and so forth. So, I mean, he's right about that.
Yeah, they actually trying to find shortcuts, being funny when I was a kid. Someone would say, oh, you can take a shortcut going here or going there. And I'd be driving what we called through the missile fields. And you drive along on a dirt road, and all of a sudden there'd be like a house there. And that would be it. And you're just like, it's the weirdest thing. I mean, I'm sure people can live off the land, but when you're from the East Coast and you're not used to that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I appreciate it, because I knew it's been a while since I've been up there, but I remember, some of that stuff.
Oh, wow. Now, Tracy, were you ever in that area, that lake?
We never did get to the lake. However, we did go up to the missile silos, and I tell you what, if you ever get a chance to go to an abandoned one of those, talking about getting, they're really creepy. You will have to bring your extra Depends.
Oh, wow.
Well, and the way they're set up, in case people don't know, it's kind of like, and I didn't know, it's really interesting, and it's one of the things that I can tell people, because I now know, but I didn't. It's almost like an umbrella. There's none near Bismarck, but if you go straight south of Minot, there's none near Bismarck, but there's 15 different sites, launch sites, and there's actually 10 missiles assigned to each site. So you got 15 different areas all spread out around the state, around emanating out from Minot. And you would just be driving along, and you'll see a building that is a launch site, and then there'll be other things. You just drive along, and you see fence and a little square block of concrete, and that's where one of the missiles is at.
Oh, yeah, Matt. I mean, you hear when you talk to these missile jockeys that sit down in these silos for days on end, and they'll tell you stories. The alarms will go off. They'll go upstairs, and they'll have a feather, or they'll have something hanging on the fence, and they go back to review the video, and the video would go fuzzy. Then all of a sudden it'd come back on, and the feather would be there. They'd go outside, and there'd be no tracks, no nothing. You hear stories like that a lot up there.
Oh, wow.
There's no place to hide either.
Can imagine. Pretty flat. Wow. No, very, very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that story. Getting toward the end of the night, so I want to make sure, I just want to flip it back again, put our guest Becky on the spot again. Your thoughts, or any additional questions or thoughts on everything you're hearing tonight?
No, it's really creepy, though, to hear so much about those missile sites and things. I had no idea, and I don't know anything about Minot, how you say it. But it's really cool that Matt called in and told us that story, because I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Well, do you think, just kind of put this to everybody out here, do you think, talking about people having experiences in the, being down in the silos, do you think the energy from the missiles themselves would act as fuel to make, we always talk about EMFs and EMF pumps and things and stuff. Obviously, a nuclear missile is going to have a lot of energy associated with it. Could that?
I would actually say no, because I don't know about anybody else that's in right now. I've actually been up close and personal with them, and not actually in silos, because I've put them on airplanes. And I've had gravity bombs and air-launched cruise missiles that had warheads in them. So I don't know. I never felt anything in me personally. Now, out in the silos, seen as they're in the ground and whatnot, but if you're getting at because of what's associated with the missile, them drawing something towards it. I never really had any bad feelings. It was just scary enough, all in and of itself, of what you were handling.
And I mean, obviously, they're not detonated, so the reaction's not going on. But obviously, given just the nature of those things, and there is shielding and things along that line, I just wasn't sure if, again, we're not really understanding what we're dealing with here. Could that act as fuel? Much like we've talked before in here about Chernobyl, and how that would definitely be a cool bucket list place. But wondering if all the residual energy from that accident makes it easier for things to manifest itself now.
Did they make a suit big enough for you to go in there?
I don't know. I don't know if they've made the Jabba the Hutt suit yet, but we're working on it. I need the plane seat big enough to get me over to the Ukraine first, and so then we'll worry about it. But
I will tell you that this is what I do know about the actual missile silos. Hopefully the Uncle Sam won't be knocking on my door tomorrow. But the inside of the silo itself is has very, very low electronic emissions. That's because of the heat signature and whatnot. When satellites fly over, they can pick it up, so on and so forth. However, you go starting at about 25 yards from the actual silo and work out to it's like 1.5 miles, 2 miles. There's ground sensors and everything else everywhere. So I'm sure if you were to stand out there with a K2 meter, mel meter, I'm sure you'd get some off-the-wall hits just because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, just wonder if that's connected as fuel for...
Well, what's funny, too, is when they started decommissioning a bunch of them, especially up around Grand Forks, people actually were asking to buy them, and they wanted to either store, I think they wanted to use them as food storage or actually live, and the government said no and imploded them.
Oh, wow. Interesting. George, your thoughts? Were you ever up in North Dakota in your Air Force travels?
No, I went overseas. I was stationed primarily in Germany as a Russian linguist, and unfortunately at that time I wasn't into paranormal investigating. I was into beer drinking and chasing Fraulein, so I missed that.
Understandable. Becky, any other questions or thoughts?
Well, George mentioned overseas. That brought up a question I had in my mind. I watched some of these shows that are over in Britain and things like that, and I just wondered, have you gone overseas and done any, tests or I just don't know if it's all here in the States that you guys are working or if you have gone elsewhere.
No, not as of yet. There's been invitations to go to Jamaica, investigate the White Witch, things of that nature. No, I wish I had been involved with this field when I was stationed in Europe, because I lived in a 2,000-year-old city called Augsburg, Germany, and I took a trip out to Dachau, which was one of the concentration camps in World War II. And to this day, even as a non-investigator, you could go there and feel the energy. You could feel that the spirits were still there. I can only imagine what could have been captured during that. But again, there are areas that are, again, almost off limits when it comes to this field, ground zero, things of that nature, Newtown, Connecticut, where it's almost a matter of respect. You would love to be able to see if we can communicate with these spirits, but there's an aspect of respect involved with it. But perhaps sometime in the future. It would be a pipe dream, but I'd love to get across the pond again and go there with the equipment and see what I could find.
Oh, amen to that.
There's a number, Becky, that are on my international bucket list, but that would be contingent on me winning the lottery. Obviously, we talked about Chernobyl, if they can get a suit big enough for me.
Yeah. She said drop.
Yeah, go ahead.
She said drop them off.
Oh, there is and I can't think of the name of it right now. It was on Destination Truth, a forest in Romania that had a lot of weird stuff. That certainly intrigued me. To George's point, I think this would be an incredible one, data and information-wise, but again, it falls into that thing of, out of respect, probably don't want to go ahead and investigate that, and that is actually where the Jonestown mass suicide in Guyana was, from both just a activity standpoint, but also possibly a additional information standpoint as well. So a lot of places outside the U.S. I would like to hit, but again, money's a huge. It's hard enough getting too far outside of North Carolina to do things these days. So, Tracy, how about you?
Oh yeah, I would love to go overseas. Germany would be a must. When I was in the Air Force, went to Germany quite often, but I didn't even get a chance to get off base because of what I did. But oh man, I'd love to get over there to Germany again.
George, what's coming up tomorrow night on Primetime Paranormal?
Oh, a good friend of ours, Faith Seraphin, pretty much your neck of the woods. She's part of the Alabama Paranormal Research Team. She's the young lady who brought us that amazing Spirit Box statement of "We will skin you alive" that we play from time to time. She's got some more evidence, going to be bringing it to us for tomorrow night, 9 p.m. with myself and Mr. Michael Bowler from Ghost Cowboys joining us tomorrow night.
Awesome. Tracy, anyone wants to get in touch with your team, contact info?
They can find us on Facebook, Emerald Coast Paranormal Concepts. They're on Facebook or our website under the same name, just .com. And I just want to throw in there, too, that every Thursday we do that paranormal chat thing, that anybody's welcome to come join us. It's just some couple of investigative groups that haven't been in it as long as George has been in it, or you, Matt. Fairly new groups, and we just sit and talk about paranormal stuff.
Awesome, and definitely, if you haven't been in touch with Tracy and his team again, great team. You guys are great to work with, and really appreciate your support and participation on the show here, and definitely check out the chat.
Yep, we will post the, we have, Matt, if it's okay, I'll post the link on Sunday Night Dead page if it's okay with you. And
that's absolutely fine.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and of course it'll be on our ECP page come Thursday night. Just click on it and you're in.
Sounds good. And I always put a little plug for myself in here. I haven't done this in a while. I have the Autumn Moon Paranormal Facebook page after a long absence due to some server issues or hosting issues. We have our website back up, so autumnmoonparanormal.net out there on the internet. Still have a couple tabs and things that we're still lining out on it, but we're back up, so our web presence is back. Becky, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
I think it's always interesting to hear what the questions people have from individuals that aren't investigating. So really, really appreciate your thoughts and questions here.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. And Shaylin.
What?
Just had to have you talk again. All right, guys. Good night, everyone. We will see you next week. We're getting close to getting cut off here. So
Bye-bye.
see you all next week. Good night.
Bye-bye.
George, Becky.
Bye.